today. I just want to do some quick introductions if you guys don't mind. My name is Gabrielle Fuqua and I'm the marketing director with Activepipe, and we're an email marketing platform, especially for real estate. And I am lucky today to be joined by two friends, Marta, and I'm so glad Marta could come because we tried to do this before and it didn't work out. And so now we're kind of playing some catch up here, but it's perfect timing actually.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yes, we also have Sam, and Sam Cardenas is a real estate agent as well as Marta, both here on the Front Range of Colorado where I am. And we're going to talk today about making the most of entry-level leads. So let's go ahead and get started. Do you guys want to just take a second and tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Sure, yeah, I'll start. So yes, my name is Marta Loachamin. I have been in the real estate industry since 1999. I started in the mortgage world and was working in that realm really from entry level. When we talk about entry level on the other side of the business and really starting from an assistant. I was the gal who poured the coffee and did all the data entry, set up all the evening, weekend appointments, and that's how I started learning the industry. And then when the market crashed, I was laid off. Like many people during that recession, and got my real estate license. And so I have been licensed since 2006, and I've worked with several rheology companies here in the US, and still practicing full time.
Great. And Sam?
Well, I've been in the business since 1988 when I first joined this wonderful industry. I've been with two different companies throughout my career, one with amazing company Realtors in Denver, and I'm with RE/MAX Northwest out of Westminster, Colorado. I have a team with two full-time agents and a marketing director and a transaction coordinator. And we just have a passion for what we do.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we came here to talk a little bit about entry-level leads. In my past position, I actually was a marketing director for RE/MAX as well. So I know that depending on the area you live in, there's not a lot of inventory available. I know there's often people looking for homes to get into, start owning home ownership, and what they can afford and what is available sometimes doesn't match exactly. And so right now with, amidst COVID, with forbearances expiring, and some families are going to be facing a really critical time. Sam, how do you think that'll affect the market?
That's a great question. And in fact, I was talking to someone the other day about that very same thing is hopefully people will understand what the forbearance program is and what happens in the end result. So I think it is definitely going to affect our market. We may start seeing an influx of short sales or even foreclosures. Hopefully not. Hopefully they start creating some retention programs for people to retain their homes. That's what I'm hoping happens. So let's keep our fingers crossed on that.
Marta, what has been your experience? Have you seen any people affected by this yet?
I haven't seen anybody affected to the point of where Sam kind of ended up there with short sale or foreclosure over the forbearance. But in March, in Colorado, and I know we've got folks from around the country, and here in Colorado specifically, March 5th was when we first detected the real announcement of COVID as far as a case. And so our industry got shut down right after that. But one of the first conversations I had online was this conversation about forbearance and making sure that we were educating community members, educating folks about specifically the questions they needed to ask with forbearance. And unfortunately, it's a lot like other systems and other, anything in our industry is technical. It's even if you've gone through the process of getting a home and then being a homeowner, once you add stress and COVID and a lot of information, disseminating information, made it really tough for folks to determine if forbearance, one, was an option, and exactly what Sam was talking about. How did folks find out if it was going to affect their credit? How did folks find out if they would truly be eligible for the forbearance as the way it was talked about from a national perspective? And I think that's the unfortunate reality is for a lot of us as property owners. We were given misinformation, and I called a couple of banks just to kind of go through the process and hear so that I could educate folks. And it was really clear that it was a could work out in 3 months. And we can talk about exactly what forbearance is if you want to talk about that later, but it wasn't guaranteed. And I think that's where we're now, as we see forbearance is expiring, is going to be problematic, because for a lot of those folks that thought they'd be okay, their scenarios may have changed. And then we also have folks who did use the forbearance and never actually, they were able to keep paying. And so it's not going to negatively affect them. But we will see shortly, and I hope that banks and agencies require data collection on this exact scenario so that we know who was helped and who was not.
Got it. Yeah, I know here on the Front Range still we have still a lot of people looking to buy and not a lot of inventory.
Yeah, in fact, to that point, in 2010, there were 29,000 houses on the market. Yesterday, I believe there were 5,600 or so houses on the market. So therein lies the problem in terms of the inventory shortage.
So Sam, with that inventory shortage, how do you handle inventory leads?
It's really tough, especially being in the lower entry type market where there's just not a lot of inventory. And when a listing comes out, your buyers are battling 20 other buyers. So it's really, really hard right now for being a first-time home buyer or entry-level buyer. Because of that reason, there's just not enough housing.
Marta, do you have anything to add about entry-level leads and helping them find a place in the market?
You know, there's a couple pieces that I think is really important when we talk about that entry level. One of it is just a place where we need to be from a service and a resource, which I believe in our industry really serve that long-term in planning, is that financial planning, because we have some folks, we start talking about what's happening in this market. It's our duty and our responsibility, I believe, inside this industry is to be educating and helping people get ready get their credit established, especially right now. Like, credit is so critical, and it will continue to do that as banks tighten and they open and they tighten. It affects consumers. And so one, we have an inventory issue. Two, we have the unfortunate reality that for a lot of entry-level buyers, they are trying to compete with, like Sam said, it's true. That is not an exaggeration. We have 13, 20, 27 offers on the same properties. I'm in Boulder County, specifically in Longmont. Our average price here in Longmont just went over the $500,000 mark a week ago.
Wow.
Boulder, which is 10 minutes from my home, we are now at $2.2 million average price that's available right now. And so when we talk about, that lack of affordable housing inventory, Sam's completely on it. And but to me, there's a gap. There's a piece of education. I know we're going to talk about some of those ideas of how else can we support entry-level buyers, because they're out there. And the other really good news is that first-time home buyers are over 50% of our market in this country. And so this conversation, Gabrielle, I really appreciate you starting it, because there's a huge market and there are a lot of folks. So how can we prepare people? How can we make them more competitive? How can we really use strategies to assist them? And like Sam's going to talk about, I think, in a little bit, because he has a team and I don't. How does he incorporate that, and how do other folks make those decisions?
Well, Marta, I know, and I could tell by one of your first answers when you were saying that you had already reached out to some of your clients and they had reached out to you, that you keep a continuing relationship with your clients. It's more than just transactional. So how do you see real estate as a force in building community?
I think that's a really important question, and almost a misnomer that people don't understand about the real estate industry, because I see it with my partners in business. And when I say that, every time that Sam or I am able to help a first-time buyer purchase a home or a buyer purchase a home, it really creates 7 to 8 jobs in every transaction. And so it's not just the realtor, it's also the mortgage, it's the title, it's the insurance. Those are relationships, and that's part of building community. It's part of folks like Sam and I who are building community, meaning we're educating folks, we're welcoming them into communities, we're making sure they know wraparound services in their communities, making sure their kids and families get involved in different programming, et cetera. And so that education for me has always been more about, one, how can I help people get into this industry who want to serve community? And how can I make sure clients are connected so that they can stay in their homes?
Yes, yes. So, you know, it seems like, you know, getting those first time home buyers in when there's multiple offers, like Sam said, is a challenge. It seems like, you know, cash offers, highest offer always wins. Often those are investors, they're not always first time home buyers. Um, what I heard that love letters now are strongly discouraged from buyers. How can agents help first time buyers get an offer that will even be considered?
Yeah, I would say to that point, being that I've been in the industry for so long, I have a good networking relationship with a lot of other brokers. So the first thing I look at is who's the listing agent. So if I know that person, I'm going to reach out to them and just kind of probe a little bit and try to get as much information upfront as possible so that we can submit the strongest offer and hopefully the winning offer ultimately. And that's, and I do that on every transaction. And even if I don't know the broker, I'm still going to reach out to them and probe and ask the proper questions. And hopefully we win. Now, I would say lately we've been probably winning 30% of our offers because, again, I would say that in the end, the strongest offer, the highest offer may not win, but more so how it's written and how effective it's written. So there's a lot of strategy in that.
Agencies really matter, don't they?
Yeah, the strategy is important, for sure. And I want to add something to that too, because I've been having this conversation over the last decade, really, since the recession, or, you know, the other recession, in terms of how do we in our industry start helping sellers look at the value of considering owner-occupied buyers versus investors. And I say that, which can be, it could be a little controversial, and also that conversation around building community and how do I, as a listing agent, make sure that that's part of my conversation. It doesn't mean I'm telling my buyer or my seller that this is what they have to do, what they need to do, as much as making sure that it's part of my conversation about why it's value for our first responders and our teachers and our community members to live and work in our communities. And I believe that is something that we're going to have to push into policies. And we've seen it from Fannie Mae, we've seen it from Freddie Mac, we've seen it from HUD over the years. And that's something to me that could be also an aid to this situation of entry-level buyers just in a lot of places not having an opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, it's personal, right? You're owning your house. It's often your biggest asset. It's, you know, it has your heart. You've maybe raised a family there, or, you know, had some really personal experiences there. Do you have any great stories that you want to share of helping a first-time home buyer, Marta?
Oh, I have a lot. I've had such a pleasure, really, and I'm sure Sam can share some of these too, because I am now helping the children of my original clients. And so for me, with a first-time buyer family, it's always a family affair. Like we always talk about it, es un evento familiar. So I want everybody there. I want the kids in the conversation, especially middle school and high schoolers, not during COVID, unfortunately, but my track of business is always meeting with folks and making sure the kids are there. And I'm talking to them as well, because this conversation about home ownership, about equity, about investment, about long-term path, about building wealth with your home and being part of your community is something that we need to be doing. And so for first-time home buyer to then be able to, probably one of my favorites is a 21-year-old kiddo of one of my original clients who purchased a new construction, and that was 2 years ago now. It was one of those things where it was like he was sitting in the room years ago when he wasn't little, but he was in school, and we've been talking over the years, and his parents have been reaching out and talking, you know, where should he go to school and what kind of advice can I give? Because we become and should become resource advocates.
Correct.
Families, for our clients, for our community. And that's a piece I think that people forget. But even when you talk about marketing, that's part of it.
Right. I mean, I'll be the bad guy because I'm the marketing director on the call. But I do think, you know, especially with entry-level leads, you know, they often have other people related to them who may have other opportunities as well. So when you make sure you're taking care of them like you would take care of your highest level client, they know a higher level client is going to get the most amazing service. There's no doubt. And I think that equity across the board actually serves agents in a marketing way.
Absolutely.
I have a quick story about the first time home buyer. I sold a house to a gentleman. At closing, we started talking about the amortization schedule and how to prepay your mortgage. Well, a short 10 years later, I had a gentleman, the same gentleman, come up to me and say, Sam, look, I just got my title for my mortgage company. I paid off my mortgage. Now he owns 3 or 4 properties just by virtue of his first purchase. So that's wonderful. You know, I love seeing those kind of success stories.
Yeah, we haven't been as successful, but Brian and I, we did start in the permanently affordable program here in Boulder. And by having that smaller mortgage, we were able to save up for a down payment and eventually buy a house outside of that program. But unfortunately, as you guys know, there's not enough of those opportunities available.
Right.
And to what you need to qualify is difficult. It's hard to qualify and be able to buy food for those programs. I mean, it really is difficult. And I know that Boulder at least has been talking about doing some more, you know, mid-range affordable programs, but I don't know that they've gotten off the ground yet. And I'm not sure around the country. If there's anybody on the call that has any programs like that, I would love to hear about them.
Yeah, and I think one of the pieces that I'm really encouraging is kind of a down payment assistance, but not the down payment assistance that we're thinking generally, because you're right, the income or, you know, restrictions or the housing restrictions or the location of the property, those all play factors into the type of financing that folks can get. And one of the pieces that I know in Boulder County, and I'd love to hear Sam's thought too from Denver County perspective, is what I call gap down payment assistance, meaning you can't qualify for the very, you know, X amount of AMI, and you don't have enough to do the 20% down on your 700,000 home or whatever that might be. There's a middle range there that I really feel like we could get sellers incentivized to support. We've seen it something similar to the Nehemiah program that went away, some of these other ones, but also being really careful about how we need to put something in there that won't affect the value so that we don't affect the equity, but really just solidly give sellers an opportunity to participate, again, if they want owner occupants to be in their previous homes and building community.
Yes. So we know, we talked about this briefly, but I would really like to hear more about it because I know both of you are really strong on this. So we know as first-time buyers, what did you say? They're 30% of the market right now?
Was that 50%, Marta? Is that what you said?
Over 50%, yeah. Well,
nationally speaking, right?
mm-hmm.
Yes. So how do you see an opportunity to create local referral networks? Like, you work as a single agent, you may get more than you can handle. But even so, you know, certain agents may get opportunities with people that don't fit their area that they work in, or maybe the price range they normally work in, or maybe there's a different language. How do you handle things like that?
From the standpoint of just referral partners or building that relationship out, yeah. So a couple pieces. I have agents, because I've worked with a couple different agencies along the Front Range. I still have agents that I worked with up in Fort Collins years ago who call me whenever they have a Spanish-speaking client. And that's, to me, a really important part of what I call building a team, because we're not officially part of a team yet. They have a relationship with me. They know that they can trust me. They know that I'll take care of their client. And they also know that I will pay them a referral. I mean, let's be real. This is about business. It's about taking care of everybody that's in the party, you know, part of the transaction when I say party. And so that kind of a relationship is really important. The other thing that's really interesting during COVID, like what's happened with my business, I have been selling manufactured homes in Boulder. Like I just got one family, and then it turned into 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I have like 6 listings now that have kind of cycled through during COVID. But what's so fascinating about that is there are a lot of agents and a lot of agencies that either won't allow their agents to sell mobile or manufactured, or because it's different. It's a different transaction. It's like affordable housing. It's like HUD housing. If you're not certified, you can't touch a HUD property. And so that has become another type of referral network. And you both are right when you say, you know, you help a client and they have other people in their sphere, other people in their families that need support and need help. And it may be a different type of transaction, but I don't touch things that I don't know about. When people call me on commercial, I call my commercial folks and I consider those part of my team. They're just referral and that's where I send them, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than ignoring a lead you don't think you can help. Get the information, find someone you trust, and pass that along so they can start to learn and get the information.
Well, that's one of the reasons I started my team, was because I was starting to get busier and busier. And not only am I able to mentor a new agent, so to speak, but also help in the meantime and in their interim, also helping families hopefully achieve their dream of owning, home ownership. So creating a team and making sure that all of these entry-level leads are being dealt with is huge. And there's a big void. There is a big void in our industry right now because people won't touch those. People will say, "Oh no, I don't have time for that. There's no inventory, so I don't even want to mess with that." But I take it as a challenge, and that's why I created my team, so that we can help these leads that are falling through the cracks.
Right. That also gives other people opportunities who might not have had a chance to get in the business and invest in getting leads out of the gate, to give them a way to learn how to talk to clients and learn all the rules and regulations under your guidance. I mean, that's great for the industry as well.
Yep. Yeah, Sam's being super humble because he is a mega producer and has been for a really long time. And he's brought a lot of people into the business. That to me is part of our responsibility of making sure that other people know what they're doing when they get out there, that they're trained with people who are ethical and who really want to serve, and shown like these different strategies. So
when I know there's a lot of buzz out there in marketing about social media and the right way to use it. And look, I'm not saying don't post if you have a new house for sale. That's not what I'm saying. But social media is social. People want to hear personal stories. So when you can share a story of a family getting a first home, I mean, those people want to hear those stories. That makes their heart warm. When you could share a story of someone coming up in the business and being successful, I mean, not only does that feel good, but it positions you as an absolute expert, that you're able to help create these situations for people. So again, I'm the marketer, always thinking about that channel of things.
That's good. We need you too.
Oh goodness. So, I would like to just ask you, when you were talking about referral networks, how do you relate, it sounds like you have your brand and you know what you do, and then you're comfortable with that. And then you're not just going to take everything that comes in, right? I mean, you're going to get as far as you can and then get to the person that needs the right help. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I'll just speak for me personally. I originally got into this business. I was in banking years and years ago and was asked to translate in the bank as a bank teller for a banker on the phone for a gentleman whose loan was denied. And that for me is the starkest reminder of the need for equity in this business, the need for information to be disseminated correctly, the need for people like our National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, an organization that Sam and I are both members of, to keep supporting folks in our industry. And I share that because for me, my business has been about making sure specifically that Spanish-speaking families and bilingual families in Colorado along the Front Range have access to the services, the programs, the affordable housing, the first-time buyer classes, the USDA financing. And a lot of that, unfortunately, even before COVID, was lost online. And it may take a little bit longer. There might be a little bit more involved. We've always met in person. This is not, because of all these different pieces. And that for me has been here's my wheelhouse. We call it a swim lane, right? So I don't need to be an acreage I don't need to know everything about water rights. I have a great agent in my office. That is her area, right? And again, on commercial. And so I've just made that decision for me. And everybody's, like you said, everybody's kind of focus is where they are. But my encouragement is always find your lane, because real estate is so huge. I don't do property management. I didn't go down that path, but I know somebody who does. So when I get those calls, that's exactly who I go to. And so that's my encouragement, is like find your swim lane and become an expert, and let other people know, hey, this is what I do. And the referral partners, and that, to me, it will come, but you have to work on it. It's like any other aspect of your business.
Right.
Just to add to Martha's point there, one of the things I learned early on in my career was to carve my niche. Just exactly what Martha said is, I carved my niche because I spoke Spanish. I was able to become the Spanish-speaking agent. And within the real estate community here in Denver, people would refer me some of the Spanish-speaking leads because they knew that I would take care of them. So yeah, carve your niche, exactly what Martha said. And I think that once you do that and you perfect it, I think you do become the expert.
Well, I just want to hear a little bit more from you, Sam, about creating teams. What you've learned, what if someone's like, you know, I don't really have time for these entry-level leads, but I hear what they're saying. How can people get started in that? What have you learned that they can learn from you?
Well, you know, I think that for me, it was important that I did create a team from the standpoint where I was really, really busy. And leads were coming in and they were falling through the cracks. And I finally said, you know what, let me start mentoring new agents, bringing them in. I would train them and then give them the leads. So you know, we would set them up with the lenders, make sure that they were buyer ready, where they were ready to buy a house. So that when my agent took them out in the car or met them at the property, we knew that if they were ready, if they liked the house, we were going to write the offer. They were able to buy and ready to buy, more importantly. So yeah, I think there's a void right now where these leads are falling through the cracks. If you're out there as a broker and you don't want to work the leads, send them my way. I'll work them. We'll work them as a team. We'll definitely work them. And because of my experience, hopefully my agents rely on my knowledge and my expertise, and they feel confident and comfortable enough to come to me and say, Sam, what do I do? What happens here? You know, inspection issues or lender issues, you know, I can shed a little light if, you know, from my experience. So I think there is definitely a void, and therein lies the reason why I did create and form my team.
And it sounds like you have a marketing director as well.
I do. I have somebody that, my wife actually, she helps me out. We market, one of the things that we've done that I learned early on was that we don't want to inundate our clients with something every month. What I do is on a yearly basis, I do 3 mailings out, and I'm still old school. I do mailings. I send out my Broncos magnet, which I'm getting ready to do here this week. And I tell you, last year we counted, I got 7 actual deals that closed from my mailing. And that's over. So my maybe $900 investment turned into several $1,000s. So yeah. I was, yeah.
As a marketing director, I will say, you know, if you're going to spend dollars on mailers, sticky pieces are where I think people should invest. And sticky pieces to me mean things like magnets with schedules on them, or like I've seen all the free days at the local, you know, museums and zoos and things like that, or sticky pieces where they're like a coupon to some place where people aren't just like, oh, something sold in my neighborhood, I already knew about that. No, I mean, again, send what you want to send, but those sticky pieces tend to have a much higher ROI.
Well, yeah, and especially because I market to my sphere of influence. So we have well over 1,200 names on my sphere of influence. And again, it's the Rockies magnet at the beginning of the year. I have the Broncos magnet, and then the yearly calendar. Those 3 mailings a year have been so the fruits of my labor. I love it.
Marta, do you have some different techniques that you use?
You know, I do an annual calendar, which is like my client's favorite. I've been doing it probably since 2000, even when I was in the mortgage industry. So people call me like, hey, I haven't got my calendar yet. Like, oh dear, we must not have your address correct. That, and then And I don't do, you know, maybe because I'm not as much of a sports person. So but I love that idea, Sam. I still do the just sold, just listed, not on absolutely every one, but I still, I do a little bit.
Do you do that to your sphere of influence, or do you do it on the area around where it's sold?
So I actually have a farm that I've been working for maybe the last 5 years since I transitioned to this ERA office that I'm in now, that's really focused basically a mile perimeter of where my kids went to school, which is 3 miles from where I'm at, and then another one that's a mile around my home, because I've walked all those areas. And so in general, people know who I am.
Right.
And so it's a mix of different things. And then I've done, you know, different drop-off things to clients and things like that, you know, every other month, which we're not now, but that's some of the other things.
You know, I left my job from marketing for real estate. I loved my job. I loved who I worked with. I loved my team. I miss them very much. Hi, if you're on there. But I found Activepipe because I was looking for a marketing solution, because it feels like everybody gets inundated these days, right? With emails and with things. And I was really looking for something with a high open rate, a high interaction rate, something that could customize, that could be done on a scalable level, like for teams. Sam, your wife could do one and send to everybody type thing. Because real estate agents don't always have the time, or maybe it's just not their specialty to write blogs or to write emails or to segment all their lists or find, you know, all the interactions and then decipher, oh, that must mean they're trying to self-valuate. You know, I mean, that takes a lot of expertise. And that's why I came to Activepipe. I agree with you guys that, you know, finding what works and doing it is so important. And especially when, like, you know, Sam hiring out those magnets and you're not sitting there doing every single one of them, because your time is very valuable, and scaling that with your wife and your team, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Another quick story as well. One of the things that I did early on in my career as well was I went to every Mexican restaurant in town, and I introduced myself to the staff, to the owner, and said, this is who I am, this is what I do. And lo and behold, as I started doing that, I started getting more and more leads and more referrals, and I sold hundreds of houses to people in the restaurant industry, especially in the Mexican restaurant industry, because I took the time to go out and meet everybody and promote myself.
Yeah. And they probably referred you to other people, I'm assuming.
And another thing that I do, and Marta could attest to this, is that I'm a walking billboard. I always wear my RE/MAX logo on my clothes, especially when I'm out showing property or when I'm meeting with the client. I think to me that just, you know, lends, you know, who I am. It lends credibility and shows who I am.
Well, I came from RE/MAX. That's a great brand. All right, well, we might have a few minutes for questions. We went over just a couple minutes. Let me see, we have a couple things up here. Yes, I will email out the recording if you guys have any questions. Does anybody have any questions for Sam or for Marta before we wrap up? I think you guys answered so many questions. They might let us off easy today.
That's fine.
We'll see. Well, do you guys have anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
I don't have anything else that I want to add. I just want to say thanks for inviting us and having this conversation, because I think it's a sector of the market that a lot of times, like Sam mentioned, that people feel like, yeah, that's, you know, that's not worth my time or whatever it might be. And I believe we can both attest to the fact that this is part of, one, building our community, but also long-term relationships that go in a lot of different directions we are not even expecting.
Yeah.
I would like to add to, especially the new agents that are new in the industry, a couple of things. Carve your niche. Real estate is the hardest way to make an easy living. You're not out there, you know, it's not labor intensive. It's hard because there's 20, 40,000 other realtors that you're competing with. Mm-hmm. But by the same token, people will see the passion that you have just by virtue of your work ethic. So, you know, have a strong work ethic. Go at it. You know, if you're a new agent, Love what you do. No one's going to drag you to success. You have to want it.
That's true. That's true. Well, I want to say a couple things. First of all, Marta, thank you so much. I know you are insanely busy. You have your campaign going on for Boulder County Commissioner, and congratulations on the primary.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you taking the time. And Sam, I know we have just met through this process, but I have a feeling we'll be talking a lot more. And when Marta calls you an expert, I know you're top tier. So I really appreciate you taking the time to join and pass on your expertise.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd be willing to do this again anytime.
I'm writing down, because the next topic I think we need to really dig into is how to really build a team.
Yes, I definitely can lend whatever strategies I have.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And I'll be sending out the recording soon. All right.
All right. Perfect.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.